headquarters of common sense.
Talk Radio.
But something broke before both of them arrived. And if you're looking at Twitter, you'll see probably a storm around Jimmy Carr. Jimmy Carr made a joke on his Netflix special, and the Family, Friends and Travellers group have reached out to me. And I just watched the joke, and one of the challenging things is that I am a free speech fundamentalist. In other words, I don't join bandwagons because I believe even the cruelest, worst kind of comedy, if you call it that, or language, I'm afraid you can't ever shut down. That's the price of democracy. And our social reactions and bringing that cleanse into the light of a public response is the best way of dealing with it. But I've got to say, Jimmy Carr, I'm not going to repeat the joke, or anybody in the audience who whooped and clapped at a joke about the genocide of travellers and gypsies. You are all complete incorrigible turds. That's what I have to say about that. I played the two of you the joke, and you've heard what I've had to say about free speech. Dawn, both of you are journalists. You rely on that freedom. What do you say about jokes like that?
There are a lot of comedians that say that in comedy, anything is fair game. Yeah. You can joke about anything and no one has the right to get upset. And while I agree with you on free speech, Rob, I profoundly disagree on this. This is not funny in any way, shape or form.
It's not funny at all.
The point of humour is to be funny. And I'm appalled that anyone could laugh and joke about that. And the audience whooping? What were they whooping for?
Yeah.
Maybe it's a nervous reaction because I didn't quite know how to react. But I'm sorry, but there are lines to be crossed in comedy.
It just sounds like somebody, like an ugly and thick person might say at a pub, where a type of bloke that everybody would ignore. Benjamin?
Well, I mean, it's clearly despicable. And my first reaction was, what's the point in that joke? Because on the one hand, it's quite reasonable to say, people should be free to joke about all sorts of things. My favourite comedian is Joan Rivers. And, she joked about her own husband's suicide. There is funny and dark things.
Yeah.
But
she also joked about the Holocaust as well, actually.
Indeed, although as a Jewish woman, I feel like she was better placed to make those judgments than Jimmy Carr. But for me, it's not about that you can't make jokes about dark things. It's that, why did he make a joke about gypsies? He wouldn't make that about gay men. They were another of the minorities that were targeted, the persecution of Nazis. And he wouldn't make it because the audience wouldn't have laughed at that. And the fact that they laughed at this joke about gypsies and travellers reveals the prejudice that those groups still face.
But don't you think there are still some categories that you can make jokes about and people still think it's funny?
Yeah, like who?
Well, I mean, like the travelling community. I mean, people obviously quite clearly find that funny. Yeah. And, I can joke about sort of like, grumpy middle-aged men, because you can make all sorts of jokes about grumpy middle-aged men, but it's there's no comparison.
Can I just be clear? Have a look at this if you're at home, right? There's lots of our listeners that are probably screaming into their radios, going, "Oh, this is political correctness gone mad. Oh, yet again, this is shutting down comedy." Listen to this joke. A bad joke and one that really tips into racism is the difference between erotica and porn. You know it when you see it. This isn't just a bad joke. It's totally incorrigibly horrible. Don't you think?
Yeah, totally. I'm still travelling with the erotica and porn image as well. But I mean, no, thanks.
Normal
for that.
Friday.
It's Friday night, yeah, absolutely. Erotica and porn with Rob Rinder on Talk Radio. It's see, that was funny. Yeah. Okay, you could have laughed at least.
It was
Rob.
funny, right?
Thank you.
It's not about the genocide of the Shinty and Roma Gypsies.
But there was who was the comedian who joked about our the milkshake throwing and that it should have been acid or something.
That was
who was it who did that?
The larger lady with the red hair.
I can't remember.
Well, she's very famous.
Whoever it was, I'm not giving a name.
Joe Brand.
Because I didn't think that was funny.
Yeah.
Normally, I'm a big fan of Joe Brand, but I didn't think that was funny.
No, there's obviously not being funny and doing this. I've got to tell you. Well, if I ever saw Jimmy Carr, I've got some thoughts, but I'm not famous enough to be one of his friends.
Good talk.
Hot talk. Bold talk. Talk radio.
Listen on your smart speaker.
Watch it live on your smart TV.
The world headquarters of common sense.
Talk Radio.